Body Lotion, the 24-hour skin moisturizer that's your skin's best friend.
The best in me.
And the change of government won't stop a thing. I've run out of fingers counting the number of multinationals setting up here. What about the 3 companies that announced their plans to launch last week? I say they're shopping. Me, I'd be looking to sell. At what price? More. Much, much more. I don't know who you are or how you know these things, but one thing I'm sure of, you're in the wrong job. Here, call me tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. I'd like to hear more from you.
Are you ready for your big break? The East African, understanding the region.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
We are all fools, blessed with the knowledge that certain things will happen no matter what path we may take. The wise ones will actually follow their angels while they may. Well, hope your angel starts this morning. Good morning at NTV. Brian, Joel, Mabel, Isma, all ready to make sure that your Wednesday is going to turn out awesome. Welcome to the show. Let's get started with the question of the day. All right, let's get some geography in here this Wednesday morning. We read the class. Awesome. Those aspiring to be teachers, I was not a fan of geography. So head over to our Facebook page, Morning at NTV. You can also tweet us at Morning at NTV. Our SMS platform is also available. Send it to 6565. 100,000 plus followers on Twitter. Let's get those numbers up on our Morning at NTV page. Of course, feel free to tag at NTV.
The IGAD Assembly opens in Ethiopia.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
In just a space of a few hours, another grenade was thrown into a house. Luckily, no one was injured this time. Like the first incident in Soroti on Sunday, this attack in Namgongo by an unknown person took place in the wee hours of yesterday morning.
At about 4 a.m., an unidentified person threw a grenade into the house of Ferdinand Luberwa. Luberwa's home in Namgongo, Balianga in Wakiso district is a home to 8 people. Luberwa narrowly escaped. He was sleeping when he heard the sound of a window breaking. His screams alerted the rest of the family.
eva kukabada wano waguru konze ndowoza yegize iki yengude wano kumu nenkasuka koze nkasuka bomb.
The suspicious looking object was shaped like a torch, wrapped in a black polythene bag. Afraid to take any chances, the family ran out and police was alerted.
It wasn't a bomb, but it was a stick grenade. So I had, as usual, I called all the occupants of the house to get out of the place. I cordoned off the place and we took charge as police.
Yesterday in Soloti, an unidentified person attacked the family of Nelson Angyendu. A grenade was thrown into Anyendu's house. He was not fortunate. He, along with his 2 children, were killed. Ivan Chimurichigozi, NTV.
A new report released by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development in partnership with UNICEF names West Nile and Karamoja as regions leading in cases of child poverty. The 2 regions tie at 68%, while Kampala records the lowest statistics at 22%. Florence Nalimba shares the findings of a report that reveals that 3.7 million Ugandan children under 5 and 38% between the age of 6 to 17 live in poverty.
A Ugandan child who grows up in an impoverished household will most likely grow deeper into poverty, even in their later years.
The majority of the population are young. You have them poor, you have a poor quality labor, you have poor education outcomes, you have poor health outcomes, you have lower incomes. There is no question about it.
At the launch of the Situation Analysis of Child Poverty and Deprivation report in Uganda, the first in the country to document child poverty, the UNICEF country representative feared for the future of the Ugandan child.
Nutrition, water, health, sanitation, shelter, education and information. 7 critical aspects that are important for any human being, especially a child. Now, in a new report released by the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development in partnership with UNICEF, a child is considered to be poor if they do not have 2 or more of these. Now, most of the children in the country, especially those under 5, do not have these.
To the Executive Director of the National Planning Authority in the government, nutrition stands out, where every 1 in 3 children under 5 years are stunted. This translates into 2.2 million children.
The formative stage of a kid has a big impact on its cognitive capacity in future.
In terms of national development, one study shows that undernutrition is estimated to cost the country an alarming 1.8 trillion Uganda shillings annually in terms of lost productivity.
The State Minister for Disability and the Elderly, Sulaiman Madada, says that though there have been gains in terms of poverty investment in the country, the children have been left out for long.
57% of the Uganda population, the population of age below 18. 20 serious country leaders, planners will take this as a serious matter.
When it comes to information, 57% of the poorest children suffer from extreme deprivation. That is about 6 out of every 10 children. These have no access to radio, TV or mobile phones. Sanitation continues to be a thorn, especially for the rural child. 1 in every 10 does not have access to a toilet or latrine. Open defecation has become the norm, and it comes with many health concerns. Regarding health, 3 of every 10 children under 5 are deprived. Shelter is another, with the Karamojong and Northern child bearing the most brunt. The main drivers of disparity are the household characteristics, geographic and regional location. With education, if the household head is not educated, then the children are 5 times more likely to be in extreme poverty. The report indicates that children in the north, inclusive of West Nile, are about 3 times more likely to be extremely poor than in the central region. The same can be said of rural versus urban areas. To control child poverty, Dr. Muvawala says that the government will have to come out strongly on this worrying trend.
Dealing with the community. They are the ones who have more resources than government. Adjusting planning systems in government to address these issues. Focus and target the worst groups.
The problem is that the planning systems have not been human rights based for a while. They have been generalizing the populace.
We don't put on the same size of shoes. So we need to do more work. It's more expensive, it's more tedious, but we need to do it.
Interestingly, however, is the fact that a home headed by a female is likely to see to lower poverty among children.
Their mothers, they are more likely to spend the little money they have on the welfare of the children compared to men.
The children interviewed were a great contributor to the report in bringing out the non-income aspects of poverty. In a problem tree, children aged 11 to 14 cited reasons such as drunk parents, death of parents, rape, disease, neglect, poor climate, amongst others contributing to their state of being poor. Florence Alimba, NTV.
An extraordinary session of IGAD Assembly of Heads of State and Government opened in the Ethiopian capital Addis Ababa to discuss the conflict in South Sudan. The meeting is taking place as the two warring parties in the South Sudan conflict converge to ink their signatures on a peace deal. Maurice Ochol reports.
Both South Sudan President Salva Kiir and his sacked former Vice President Riek Machar are in Addis Ababa to bring an end to war in the world's youngest nation. Speaking to NTV, the ambassador of South Sudan to Uganda, Samuel Luat, said the developments are a continuation of the peace process.
We as a government will go to this peace process without preconditions.
The extraordinary session of the IGAD Assembly of Heads of State and Government focuses on ways of improving peace and security in the 6th East African bloc devoted to boosting political and economic cooperation. Participants will also strive to come up with solutions for resolving the conflict in South Sudan, as well as security threats posed by Somali-based Islamist insurgent group Al-Shabaab.
IGAD Mediators Committee will also sit down with President Salva Kiir and Riek Machar to see a way forward as to ending of this crisis in South Sudan.
Rebel leader Machar is championing a transitional government followed by a general election and the implementation of a federal system to solve the crisis of governance and distribution of wealth and power in South Sudan. These demands have so far been rejected by the government of South Sudan.
What he wanted to do is, of course, it is clear that Riek Machar wanted leadership of the Republic of South Sudan.
The question of presence of Uganda's People's Defense Forces in South Sudan is likely to feature. Those loyal to President Salva Kiir, Adbit Dr. Machar, has been opposed to Uganda's army presence in South Sudan since violence erupted on the 15th of December 2013.
You know, we do not want to say a vacuum because the IGAD forces have said, the IGAD countries have said that they will send in a protected, unit to South Sudan, as well as a deterrent unit to South Sudan. The government of South Sudan have said clearly that as IGAD have agreed to bring in these people of South Sudan to make sure that peace is monitored in South Sudan.
The violence which broke out in mid-December last year has forced more than 1.3 people, including 500,000 of children, to flee from their homes. Aid agencies say over half of South Sudan's population are at risk of starvation and 223,000 children could face acute malnutrition, while 50,000 of these children may not survive. Maurice Ochol, NTV.
Tomorrow, the Finance Minister Maria Chiwanka will present yet another national budget. Will she deliver or fall short of the expectations of small-scale traders? NTV went out to seek the views of some of these small-scale traders.
This 27-year-old trader, who's been dealing in textile in downtown Kampala for the last 10 years, is among other small businesses that oil the coffers of the Uganda Revenue Authority each financial year. Against a huge tax burden that she claims she shoulders, textile traders like this woman are barely able to make a profit.
Assuming you've used like 10 million, you're going to pay taxes that amount to 30. And yet when you're working, you cannot get that amount.
Another trader, Sophie Magala, who runs two businesses, speaks of a similar struggle. The private sector last year influenced up to about 80% of the 2013-2014 budget, which largely prioritized infrastructure development. That power to influence is however lost on many small traders who say they do not understand the budget.
The percentage they use, local people don't know percentages. They don't understand 0.2, 4%. They just don't understand such figures.
But come Thursday, beyond the jargons and statistics, many would want to see tax exemptions.
Sometimes the tax for the fuel is too much, and we as self-drivers, we can't afford it. It's too much.
There are some roads they say this and this road they are going to, to reconstruct it, but you hear it over and over again in each and every budget.
The budget could be a tough balance act for the government that is seeking to prioritize power, infrastructure and jobs, yet is faced with a small tax base and dwindling donor support.
Uganda Revenue Authority is likely to deal with an unprecedented revenue deficit in the excess of 300 billion shillings, growing from 250 billion last financial year. While less than desired revenue collection is a going concern for Uganda, overestimation of the performance of the economy amidst a turbulent regional market and sluggish consumer demand did not help the situation. This is one of the key issues that will concern the makers of the budget for the next financial year. Samuel Setumba with this story.
2013-14 financial year might present perhaps the biggest revenue deficit in the excess of 300 billion shillings in the recent past. This makes a persistent situation worse, as government is trying to raise the revenue to GDP ratio from below 13% to at least 15%. Why was this year worse than all the others? First, the economy.
The private sector seems to have been weaker. It seems to be weaker than anticipated at the time when we did the budget, when we did the program, when we did the forecast.
Regional trade has been a very critical factor in export performance of this country. Not only exporting to Southern Sudan, but even to DRC. We have seen a weakening in regional exports.
Then government decided to stick to its expenditure despite revenue shortfalls.
We had the objective of not cutting the budget so that people don't accumulate areas and or give results why they are not implementing efficiently the programs. But also supplementary, government expenditure was slightly higher because of the identity card and defense.
Thus, government borrowed domestically, and instead of 1.1 trillion shillings had been planned, they borrowed about 700 billion shillings more than agreed, which has its own effect. But URA says government has defaulted on its taxes to URA, which if paid would almost wipe out the deficit.
But that problem has been going on for some time. And I don't think the target we set, because much of those taxes are neutral to the budget, it explains that revenue failure. No.
The problems of this year aside, the challenge of lower tax collections persists as a reality that ought to be tackled holistically.
The level of expenditure required to fund our budget and national development strategy far exceeds the domestic resources and revenues that we have. Although one may propose tax reforms to increase domestic revenue to the desired level, government faces enormous challenges in this area. So in addition, an efficient tax administration is also obstructed by the predominance of agriculture and a large informal sector.
We have records problems. Sometimes you have this Karamajong, he has so many animals. To collect tax from him is not a joke. So yes, it's a structural problem rather than lack of political will. But that's the areas which we have asked the task force to study and see how we can deal with it.
The URA is trying to ride on, for the start, KCCA's business registry in order to bring the informal sector on board. And URA claims to have added 14,000 to the tax registers in Kampala.
So we want to be able to work with KCCA to educate those who go into these businesses that they have obligations.
In the central business district, you'll find some shops. One shop, there are 15 entrepreneurs, 15 business people. Not even any one of them is registered because they all sit under one umbrella. Now, from a tax perspective, I think one would come and say, look, how can I mobilize revenue from these guys? I'll give you a flat rate. I don't care how much you make, but pay me 15,000 a month as tax. And bring those guys into the tax net.
The attempts to increase the tax base, starting in Kampala, are good. The promised government task force to deal with the structural issues like taxing agriculture will be watched for results. But there remains a challenge of politicians avoiding taxing their so-called voters. Samuel Setumba, NTV.
I'd actually never thought how hard it could be to collect tax from a cattle keeper. We shall now cross over to Brian. Oh, Simon is around. Simon, good to see you. Do tell us what the picture of the day is today.
Good to see you as well, Mabel, and of course good to see our viewers and yes, my dear friends Joella and Brian. In this morning we're waking up the Daily Monitor, whose picture of the day is some long line of little children queuing up for clean water at a borehole somewhere in Kasanda sub-county in Mubende district. And this borehole was sunk by the Egyptian government. And it now vindicates my long-held argument that in fact we have more power lines in this country as opposed to water lines to individual users. And this is a clear picture of vindication of this argument, meaning that whereas water is a human right, we seem to be seeing less and less clean water to the citizens as opposed to reliable electricity. That is what we'll be looking at, and many other stories playing out in the Observer this morning, the Red Paper and the Daily Monitor. A very good morning once again, and nice to see you in this brand new week. For me, it's a brand new one coming in on Wednesday, the 11th of June 2012, and coming to you live from the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel. It's morning at NTV's press review with myself, Simon Kasiate, Joel Senyonyi, and yes, Brian Mulondo. Good morning, good people. It's been a while.
It has. Really what was that respite like for you?
Well, without going into further detail, I would want to say I am happy to be back and joining you, and of course, I've been catching the program from wherever it is that I was holed up, and yes, tremendous job being done by the two of you.
Thank you, thank you. They told us you're still recuperating. I took a very close look at the way you walked in, the way you were walking, and so on. I was thinking, okay.
You can be very sure, not even my hair has been cut, so all my body parts are intact. As opposed to people who soon will be cutting off their eyelids because they think they are not very important. Well, we know, and saddened by a fact being presented by a report here which the Daily Monitor has fronted on its front page, that 3.5 million children in Uganda are living in abject poverty. Joel. So if every average adult in Uganda has 7 children, so how many adults, because I want to believe that children cannot live in abject poverty and their parents are living in...
Without a doubt.
So how many parents here, how many adults here are living in abject poverty?
This is very worrisome. And you see, when they tell us that Uganda's poverty statistics are now at 19%, I find that very disingenuous. You know, just do a random survey. Just here in Kampala, it is worse elsewhere. And look at what the situation is like, you know. It's an appalling one, and we should be worried. Those that are middle class like you and so on, I know many times you say, those ones, they will be fine at some point. But you see, ultimately it will affect us, you know, because these are the people that will break into your houses, that will stone you, and that kind of thing. We I think need to do a lot more.
But you see also what I don't understand is, yes, break into my house, take my holdings and all that. But the same chap that breaks into my house and takes property worth 50 million shillings is still going to be in poverty 1 week down the road. He will pick the items, sell them, and squander the money. You see, if you came and stole from me and made your life better, oh, so much the better. But you see, what I don't understand is this everlasting stealing that I rob from you, Joel. I squander the money, come back and rob from you after you've worked so hard. I mean, whereas we always want to run and blame the faceless thing called the government. But I think much of this poverty is occasioned on us by ourselves. The attitudes at some point need to change, and we start looking at ourselves as the solutions to much of our problem, as opposed to looking at government.
Without a doubt. One wise man said, I think it's Abraham Lincoln, that whatever you are, be a good one. Be a good one. You know, we many times read stories, profiles of people. You know, find a guy is a bricklayer. He has now built a house. He's got, I don't know, what other enterprises.
So they bought a guy the other day who says he has holdings worth over 500 million.
You know, so I think we need for starters love what we do and know that it will accrue into something.
And I honestly think that this report maybe even underestimated the number of children that are living in abject poverty.
I would think so too.
But of course, sort the parents out first, and the kids, it's a spillover effect. The kids will get better.
How do we sort out the parents, you think?
Maybe if we have today Honorable Sam Kutesa elected as the President of the United Nations General Assembly, perhaps this is one of the other solutions that will ameliorate us from this poverty. And indeed, we see
security to improve that.
And then we are looking at this as a story on page 3 of the Daily Monitor here that Kutesa's fate is going to be decided today.
The voting is on today.
Let's not forget that Sam Kutesa, our Foreign Affairs Minister, is the sole candidate that has been presented by the African continent. And let's also not forget that it is Africa's turn to hold the presidency of the United Nations General Assembly. So the mood is quite a buoyant one. Africa has put its weight behind our foreign affairs minister, and like some cynic really wrote recently, I think the best thing that can happen to this Uganda is saving us from Honorable Sam Kutesa and putting him at the presidency of the United Nations General Assembly. And we wish him the very best.
Maybe it's much easier. He'll be forced to be accountable for his action.
Well, he has always been accountable. I don't think he has faltered on being accountable. He was accused and he has been absolved. That's why the word absolved really does. And so I think as a country may not need to look at the little shenanigans or the misdemeanors of Honorable Sam Kutesa.
But you see, however little they are, they've cost us, and not just Sam Kutesa. You know, there's many. I mean, you talk about Shogam, you talk about Global Fund and all these. You see, my problem is money disappear in this country and people are acquitted, absolved, like you say. Look, money does not grow wings and it flies away. Somebody has got to be held responsible.
Well, somebody was held responsible and sent to prison to answer for the Chogam mismanagement, and he comes out and starts claiming it is political witch hunt, and that is our very good Professor Gilbert Bukenya. So where does he think?
But he was acquitted too.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. That, but in his acquittal,
so ultimately, then what happened to this money? If everybody is acquitted,
absolutely.
I mean, then the money should be recovered.
He's acquitted and doesn't even capitulate the fact that he must have eaten a few of these shillings.
But if he was acquitted, but this guy is shooting himself in the foot.
You just said he was absorbed. But also you see examples of Mukula saying the first lady got 54 million, traveled all. I think it's about recovering the money. It's okay.
That's
you
my point.
Absorb the people. It's okay. Let them go. They are not guilty. But where is the money?
Because you see, if we say money was stolen, no one stole it.
See, I'm saying how this discussion has degenerated into theft. We are talking about the election today.
It's about integrity of our leaders. And right now,
it began from the poverty situation of our children.
Every time we talk about Honorable Sam Kutesa, then you will start bastardizing the debate into
no. It's about integrity and accountability of our leaders. And you know, if Sam has failed to do that here in Uganda, it's going to be worse for him at the UN, where he and I hope he has canvassed lots of protection, because it's different. It's a different game.
No, I want to believe that you may have, or we may have a few shortcomings as presenters on NTV. Right. But if we are thrust into the thick of things at the BBC and you find yourself as the host of Hard Talk, possibly your game will improve, because you're playing at a large stage and you're faced with huge resources and huge.
I like the word you use. Hopefully. Let's hope things will improve. I just wanted to read what the cartoonia says on the 3.5 million.
It is not the cartoon.
The lizard rather. What happened to prosperity for all, which I like to think is prosperity for a few? It's time to be corrected.
Beautiful question there.
The 37 million Ugandans living better lives.
We are waking up to a reported death in the Daily Monitor. A sad debacle here of, yes, I'm sure you remember, if you were a keen follower of the Daily Monitor, the picture of the day not so long ago, where the executive director of the Uganda Wildlife Authority was as if kissing a giraffe at the Uganda Wildlife Education Center. This giraffe, fondly known as, what's his name? Tangi, who was always very receptive to feeding in a manner that looks like presenting to eat a kiss, was found dead in his holding cell at the Uganda Wildlife Education Center yesterday. And this is worrying conservationists. Let's not forget that giraffes are not as many as we think they are. At least we are not Denmark, which slays their own.
Well, they call it behind the scenes program, and Tangi was one of the first few giraffes that had gotten used to strangers and feeding them. So postmortems have revealed several, causes of death, and they're still finding out. But
well, at this rate of kissing different people, I don't even think he had much life left for him. Whatever they call it, I think.
When he has to kiss smokers and perhaps ex-smokers.
Yeah. Well, I don't even think it's so much about smoking. I mean, let's not denigrate the imbibing of tobacco, but I think I have known non-smokers who, for the most part, have the worst foul mouth odor I have ever smelled.
How did you say? What were you doing with them?
No, and okay, you see, the sad part is that you don't even need to get very close to them. You need to be. It is by Bluetooth, as seems to suggest that the headline of the Red Pepper this morning.
I don't understand. This is probably Bluetooth news also. Tinyafuza plans to kill Saleh.
And I'm asking, is General Saleh going to die by Bluetooth? Because the last I checked, General Tinye or General Sejusa, for that matter, is not here to execute this killing.
Does he have to be? And I'm not saying he's planning to, but you don't have...
And that's why I want to have a very loud laugh. He was here with him in the bushes for 5 years. He worked with him for 30 years. He fled the country and left him here. And he thinks he can successfully kill him while he's away.
Assuming this is true anyway. You actually might read the details of this story and find it's totally...
No, but you see, let's look
here.
at the headline still. I don't even think General Sejusa has the capacity to step on a ripe banana in Uganda and it bursts out of its shell.
Why do you say that?
Interesting.
No, he is that weak in my
for
view.
me, I found that
no, tell me, do you doubt that, Brian?
Like John said, he doesn't have to be here to carry out any mission.
And I am asking that, can he do such a thing? Can he do that by Bluetooth?
For fear of being quoted wrong.
Okay. Defend your independence, Katikito tells media houses. This I like. We need to do this a lot more. You know, as they are raining in heavy on us, do this, do not do that. Now do the other. I think we need to stand up to be counted as media houses. But also, we need to improve our professionalism. Sometimes I actually see government's concern of, you turn on a certain TV station or radio and you're listening to a lot of bollocks and you're thinking, this is not right.
I'm going to say this and you'll hold me for it. There is a picture taken of the managing director of ESCOM handing over a prize to somebody. Against them is a backdrop of ESCOM with the word ESCOM clearly written. ESKOM. And guess what the caption of the newspaper story was reading? The managing director of ESCOM, ESCOM with a C. Yet the same picture had the name which you have failed to transcribe. I mean, if you have names of organizations wrong that are glaring in front of you, and you are the same guy clamoring for freedoms to continue with this kind of bollocks, I think before you start, anyone who seeks for justice must come with clean hands. So I'm told.
Right.
I mean, you cannot come when you're brigand dripping blood and you start demanding
well,
for
apart
equal
from
treatment.
the spelling mistakes, you know, that
and
happen.
it is those small things that you consider small
and they matter, by the way,
that together, I always talk about the collective sum. I mean, you spell Mulondo's name as Mulanda or Mulondo.
It
goes, that is okay. Error is human. Then you
instead of Kasiata, you say
Kasiata or Kat for that matter. You let it pass. I mean, you see, it's those little small things that when you let them unabated,
right?
That's why they say that a small leak sinks a great ship.
The president has, instead of has condemned the best, the president has commended the best.
But my question is, have we actually had an independent media? As well, NMG is credited for being independent, but now the other day a border man was telling me, NTV, you're doing a good job, but these days you are there. You are there. You know, you are bringing us stories of people, house girls fighting. You are like the other people.
Like,
and I thought to myself, have we been compromised so much? Now we don't bring the news as it's supposed to be because we fear being closed.
I think bottom line is we should all up our game, even we that have gotten to
see what I also don't like this blind condemnation of people sitting in the comforts of their room and determining what makes news when it's actually not there. That border guy, put him to task and say, what news story have you had elsewhere or seen in your own view that NTV has failed to capture and bring to your sitting room in its proper perspective? I mean, yes, viewers have a right to demand and always hold us accountable and all that, but they must do it within the realms of realism and not sit back and start fantasizing. I mean, we don't have a crew in Ukraine, and we cannot afford to put a crew in Ukraine. So they don't expect Ukrainian stories there unless we pick them off our sister networks. There has not been any happening that NTV has not covered, at least across the country. Of course, there is room at the top. We are always on a continuous quest for improvement, and that is our mission. But certainly, that does not give leeway to people to sit back and start castigating us against a very high yardstick.
But we should take feedback.
We do take it. But you see,
we should throw out the window. But
I'm not throwing it out, Joel. But you see, I want to accept. You see, for me, I love you to give me constructive criticism.
Constructive in your opinion might be what sounds like music to you.
No, not quite. I mean, like I say, there is always room for improvement.
Without a doubt. And let's keep improving.
I mean, you get people who can barely do 100th of what we do. I mean, at least for the most part, credit us for one thing. We give you the news at the top of the hour. The bulk of these people here are always late to watch the news. They are late to their appointments. But there's no single time this program starts late, no matter whether it rains or shines.
Okay.
And it does quite a lot.
Quote of the day. This is His Excellency the President on disbanding NADS. And another big story is coming up with Colonel Felix Kulaije. I will put a soldier in every constituency and add him to government workers who are ready there to help us. NADS people have eaten enough. I'm sure Colonel Felix Kulaije is listening to me. I think we need to keep our army in the barracks. They have not done a very good job in many ways. They looted in Congo, in Somalia, they stole supplies. You know, we know about junk choppers, we know about undersized uniforms. I can go on and on. You know, so for us to imagine that the army is the panacea to every predicament in this country, I think that's going down the wrong path. They have done a good job. They pacified the region and that kind of thing. But you see, we need to build institutions in this country. So what will happen? Are we going to send the army to teach? You know, when teachers fail to do that, are we going to send them to hospitals to inject our patients because nurses are failing to do
Kanokoleje will tell you that he taught me general paper in high school.
And he told us something that you're actually one of his worst students.
Well, and that tells you much about your teacher.
But some of his other students passed highly.
But his student, one of his students is the guy that has made the
rocket. You might get Kulaje running up here.
So one of his students, the guy at NASA that is going to the moon? Certainly not. Anyway, we are waking up to headline in the Observer this morning about the Mengo government of Uganda memorandum of understanding, and the headline story is asking, was Buganda duped? The word is Buganda. Now, I hope it's not a typing error, that the word, the letter B is there out of a mistake. So the issue is, was Buganda duped?
Of course, I talk about, you know, the titles, and the Attorney General not too long ago was saying, look, I think we need to review this agreement because there is the Baluri, the Kochi, and so on. They are saying, we too want our properties back. And some of the titles you gave to Buganda actually belong to us, you know.
But it's also the same thing even in Toro. Now, you know, the king is frustrated that
and
he's planning to fast for 1 week to show his
Has he not begun his fast already?
He has not yet started. But it's the same thing, you know.
I think the best thing that can happen to His Royal Highness is that good fast, at least it will reduce on his
you talk bad.
There's a question here in the red paper. There's a question here in the red paper. What is Uganda's communication strategy? You are what we call spin doctor.
No, I am not a spin doctor.
Okay, you are a doctor with spin.
No, I am not.
Okay, you're whatever you do.
Please do not denigrate my otherwise highly pressed title, Corporate Affairs Manager.
What, we are a youthful nation and they talk about it. We have failed from time to time. We did Uganda Gifted by Nature,
which was I think a flop.
Yes, which
after
was
spending billions of money.
It was a beautiful campaign, but it ended
it
like
didn't materialize. We didn't see the fruits of it.
How would you want Uganda to advertise itself?
You see, many of you make the mistake to expect Uganda to have the same marketing nuance as the United States of America or the UK. Let me tell you, what you see playing out around Uganda, it is the same. I mean, the people who come here and they watch this morning show and ask me, what on hell is this happening? How can you have something of this kind of caliber? I mean, we are a certain caliber. Let us
Do they think it's awesome or the other way around?
Of course, the opposite of it. Let's all have a collective move towards bettering ourselves, from our own persons to our own institutions, and all the things will fall in place. But we can whinge about Uganda till kingdom come. All I can tell you is that we are doing a lot better than most guys with whom we are swimming with in the sea of murky waters.
Come on, we should not become complacent and say, look, I am slightly better than the other person. I think we should all aim higher, keep getting better. You talk about, you know, us campaigning and so on CNN and that kind of thing. I think, like you did allude to, we need to better things here for starters, you know, and eventually it's just like when you're a business person, just make your product good. It will sell. You don't have to be on TV,
just
on
because my neighbor.
Joel, thank you so much. What we are going on about, I'm sure that is already known to the powers that be. They are trying their level best. The best we can do is remove them and put others who can do better.
I don't see that best.
Well, I'm saying that the best we can do is remove them and put others who we think can do a better job. Because where we have reached, we are stuck with them. And the best thing you can do is every 5 years, change them. Absolutely.
To have a strategy.
Mabel, we know for a fact that the Boko Haram continues to wreak havoc in Nigeria, and people in that area of Nigeria where the Boko Haram is running roughshod are now asking government to give them guns so that they can defend themselves. The Nigerian army has failed to protect them. What else is trending on the international scene?
Thank you very much, Simon, for that. Yes, the Nigerian army is trying its best, according to them, but who knows what is actually happening. Some say the Nigerian army is not motivated enough to go after these rebel groups, probably something the president of Nigeria, Goodluck Jonathan, will disagree with. But on the Al Jazeera front page, other stories making news. We have thousands of Iraqis fleeing after a town, Mosul, was seized. A splinter group of Al-Qaeda seized this Iraqi town and have put to flight security forces in that area. We also see Pakistan Taliban claiming a second attack on Karachi, another big town in Pakistan, and we also have the story of the South Sudanese leaders agreeing to form a new government. And still on Reuters, we still also have that story of Mosul falling to the militants and the forces of Iraq fleeing the country. Now, this is a big story in the US, but it's also a big story worldwide. Gentleman Eric Cantor from Virginia lost his seat. Now, he was a very powerful Republican, and this is an upset that has sent shockwaves throughout Congress. And he lost to a conservative Tea Party movement, the biggest victory in its 4-year history. Now, on Sky News page, we still have the story about the Iraqi city Mosul being seized by the Al-Qaeda splinter group. Actually, a state of emergency has been called in that area. And on to other pages, having a bit of trouble here today. We have the Brazilian president of... the president of Brazil claiming that Brazil is ready for the World Cup. Come rain, come shine, everything's going to work out perfectly. And yesterday we did talk about Angelina Jolie as well as William Hague opening the London War Rape Summit. And that is what we had for you on the international scene. The morning at NTV continues with the big story after this break.
You and I ever gonna have a chance to be sisters?
You want the baby to have my name?
Would that be okay?
Son, I'm happy you came. Yes, especially since I thought you were shunning all things Newman. I have my own reasons for showing up.
What did you say about him?
I'm sorry, attempted rape.
Okay, look, whatever you think you know about him, you don't know his heart.
If there is a way to make me feel more miserable, you will instinctively find it.
You gave up the one woman you loved, and now you're having a hard time figuring out how to move on?
I can't imagine who would want to hurt a good man like you.
Okay, you know what? I don't need you telling me how to feel about Lily.
Are you pregnant? No. Then why are you trying to alienate Tyler?
Has something happened between the two of you? Are you afraid that I'm gonna do something to ruin your marriage, or that you will?
Why don't we have a party? I'll bring Nikki and bring your siblings. How's that?
Now, what are you gonna do? You gonna blackmail them this time, or are you gonna bribe them?
Looks like Mommy's not the only one who knows how to make up a story.
Ekifo ekimu kissa wamusu n'ekyalo ekiweddeko abamanye bakiraza mumwa. Tugenda kutuuka gy'oli oyogere naffe ebikwata ku kyalo kyo, embeera mw'okolera, ebyobufuzi, ebyobulamu n'ensonga endala nnyingi. Ebyogerwa tebiyita. Tuusa eddoboozi lyo, yogera naffe buli lwakuna butereevu ku NTV akawungeezi.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji and Brian Mulondo.
Well, there we have it for the big story this very good morning on the 11th day of June 2014, and we are looking at this new phenomenon, at least announced by the President at his State of the Nation address last week on Thursday, saying that he will put an army officer in every nook and corner of this country, if for nothing else, to supervise the works that are going on by government officials that do not seem to be up to the mark. And this morning we'll be with the pleasure of hosting the Political Commissar of the Uganda People's Defense Forces to explain to us how this is going to work. Is the army now being relegated to the point of doing little nitty-gritties and turning nuts and bolts, as opposed to what we know is the traditional role of the army to defend the territorial integrity of this country? A very good morning once again, ladies and gentlemen. We are live from the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel, and yes, it's the big story this morning. The big story is that we've been told, and of course without any missing of his words, by the president of this nation, who say that for the most part soldiers will be monitoring government projects. Why? Because government officials seem to have run sloppy, or at least do not seem to be accountable to the people for whom they should be serving. And now we're asking the big question this morning: how effective will the army be towards these projects? And with us in the studio is the political commissar of the Ugandan People's Defense Forces and former spokesperson of Defense and the UPDF. Colonel Felix Kuleje, most obliged and very happy to have you on the show this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Kasiate.
The Army has been tasked to do a number of projects that is outside your realm of the traditional role of the Army, which is the protection of the territorial integrity of this country. You were tasked to be one of those to spearhead the construction of huge projects like this railway line that is being talked about. We see a huge establishment at Kololo Airstrip, which was built by your engineering department. We have seen you get involved in rescue missions here and there. Of course, once in a while we see the military police whipping us up on the streets of Kampala, where the ordinary police seems to have a problem. Absolutely. Now we see the president waking up to say the Army is going to monitor government projects at every smallest holding of state appearance. Isn't this one stretching you a little too far as an Army?
First of all, I want to correct you. What the president said, we are involved in distribution of seedlings. Actually, the program is the poverty alleviation program. And yes, true, we have, those are activities that are not originally known to be performed by the military. But there are two things I would like to remind you. One is the Constitution. Article 209, subsection E, says the UPDF shall be productive and contribute to the development of Uganda. Now, production means you get involved in productive activities, which include agriculture, industry, and services. So, the president is being constitutional in that in that venture. Number two, there is something called operations other than war. It's a study in the military. We even have a director for operations other than war. He's called Kanojik.
And so someone is asking the question here that so soon when this army has no wars to fight and you are carrying out your operations other than war, we will see you take part in almost every facet of our living. That we'll see you being sent to schools to teach, we'll see you being sent to hospitals to treat people, we'll see you sinking boreholes.
Let's start from the beginning. Where is this coming from? When you are still a schoolboy, this government began something called Rural Farmers Scheme, where then Uganda Commercial Bank was given money. Actually, was instructed to lend to farmers. Eventually, they became non-performing assets. All right? Why? People borrowed the money. They never returned. That story
is well documented.
Allow me to develop my point, because you asked a question and I'm giving you where it is coming from.
Yeah, but you know, like I already said, this is SMS of TV. We either have our points quick and fast and sharp, or else we won't have the whole day here discussing.
Thank you very much. I know I don't have the whole day because I also have other things I do.
Absolutely.
Now, we have other activities that have come in. Rural Farmers Scheme, Entandikwa, all these.
Bonabagagawale.
What has happened?
NADS.
Now, NADS comes on the failure of all those. Now, NADS, this is Agricultural Advisory Services. They have been given the money to distribute seeds and give advisory services. But at the same time, the districts have what they call extension services. Did they perform their work?
You tell me.
Nala. Now, if you are the president of this republic, you have had all these programs for 25 years, and still they stop somewhere. Tractors were distributed at sub-county level.
Nothing.
Today you can't trace even a rim.
Very good. So now what comes in as the magic bullet?
He went on to tell them that please select 6 farmers in every parish. So the government supports him. This is about 10 years ago. What happened? Nothing. So the man says, okay, let me start with the veterans. He sends us to support army veterans. We distribute seedlings. In 9 months, the program has been a huge success. Against a backdrop of what? So what does he do? For example, when we're in Mayuge,
let's look at this.
As you come to the question, just a simple example. He just called on Lieutenant Colonel Damuzungu, unprepared. He said, Damuzungu, on the microphone. How many seedlings have you distributed? The man had fingers on fingertips. How much? How many are distributed? At how much? It was not even a quarter of one district's allocation to NADS. For the entire Busoga region. So if you are the deploying authority, what do you do?
Well, look, you are charged with distribution of seedlings to veterans. Now, we know the discipline of the army.
Yes.
That you guys take nothing but orders. I mean, you are conditioned as machines to take orders from above and execute them without questioning them.
Yes.
But that's not the bulk of Ugandans. Many of these Ugandans who are civilians like myself.
So when you give me seedlings to distribute, you should question why you should distribute them.
Or perhaps if you would give me seedlings, I will possibly eat them. So
what should you?
No, and I'm saying you could have been successful within veterans who are one of your own, who take orders and who know they must succeed. Now, how can we be sure that the same level of discipline and execution will be extended to the bulk of the citizens who are civilians?
The answer was in the Mitiana Mbende region. The other day, the 1 inch, not veterans, 1 inch testified because we have moved already to the 1 inch. And they testified.
And so we are doing
has done a good job.
But tell me something, for kind of Felix, right?
Yes.
People looking at you this morning on TV are also asking themselves one question. Is the UPDF a communion of saints that the president must look at it as the last resort for anything to be done?
No,
I mean, we have cases where you, the UPDF, have failed in your own mandate. You steal rations of soldiers deployed in war zones like Somalia. You go to countries to pacify them and instead loot their timber and other minerals and come back here. And then before we know it, an avalanche of women is following you from that country. I mean, at the end of the day, UPDF cannot claim to be the moral vanguards of this country. And we also going to see, and I mean, Simon, without waxing lyrical here, I want to be assured, and many viewers want to be assured of whether you will execute this with the pinpoint precision that the president seems to have with you.
For 10 years now, the UPDF has been voted as the most trusted government institution.
By who?
The Ugandan public. Even last week, an opinion poll carried out.
You know, I want to believe that I am no longer one of the Ugandan public members because I have never participated in an opinion poll. I only do elections.
Well, ask those who do it. I have never done one, nor financed one.
So who does it? Please, if you have participated in any opinion poll, send us a tweet, including Kasiate this morning, so that I can know who participates in these opinion polls.
Simon, it has been done by Monta, it's been done by New Vision, it's been done by every end of the year.
Asking who are these?
Don't ask me. Ask the Ugandans who have done it. And I think the pollsters are indicated. So if Ugandans have been trusting UPDF all this time around, in everything by the way we have done, I agree.
Except the distribution of mosquito nets. The other day you were given mosquito nets for distribution, and we know that the story is not much of what describes the word success.
To the contrary. To the contrary. I commanded the mission in the East. In Teso, it was 100% successful. In fact, so if it's the UPDF that arrested some individuals, I will not mention from where, that were stealing the mosquito nets.
Or who had gone fishing with them.
But the point is, it's true we are not saints. But in terms of performing ratings, who performs better? 2, when we err, what happens?
And I'm asking myself.
Whereas for us, you see, what makes us stick? You know, what
when
I would love to do.
We send you to the court martial.
Yes.
We send you down.
Absolutely.
And of course relatives
now,
come.
When you civilians error, what happens? Our son. Oh, this.
No,
this one is because it's DP
I
or
don't mention Brigadier Ondoa's, is it Ondoga?
You're tribalizing it?
No.
I saw some tribalizing Ondoga.
Not me, but I saw people
when
coming
I say you,
saying,
I'm talking with Ugandans.
Exactly.
Yes.
So that
you tribalize it.
You're also not insulated very much from the usual
from
thing
you
of our
fellows.
son.
Of course we are not. However, what saves us that we stand firm and say, wait a minute, can we allow the law take its course? And then your tribal trappings can come about.
Later. Now let's go back to our initial question, I asked whether don't you feel as the UPDF you will get overstretched with this kind of Herculean task put onto you, because we see President Museveni increasingly getting a lot of tiredness from his own officials who are civilian and putting in the army. Won't you reach a point where you think you cannot take this anymore and that begins to become your battle of Waterloo?
The good news is you're talking about a president who understands the capacity and the capability of his army.
Well, he's the same president who understands the capacity and capability of his own civil servants.
The civil servants are not his. Civil servants are recruited like anybody else.
Yeah,
the moment you have the paper qualifications, there you are. But for us, discipline is one of the conditions.
But there should be discipline in the civil services.
Well, there should. You are using the right word. Why isn't it there?
I'm asking myself, the superintendents over the same government which runs the civil service. You cannot tell me that there are two governments here, the civil service.
You can't have your cake and eat it. You can't have your cake and eat it. You talk of liberties. You talk of freedoms. For us, those freedoms.
You're talking about the commander-in-chief as if he's the chief of defense forces. Come on, he's the commander-in-chief, yes, but he also superintends across the country.
I will not speak about the civilians, but I know they have disappointed us. All right? Some of us have been let down. We individuals. If people do not even fear a red collar, they can't like me, and they let you down, when I'm very close to them, what about the president who
But
has
is that
other
supposed
things
to mean that I shouldn't
to
ask
think
you
about?
tough questions? I should fear a guy with a red collar?
No, I say
certainly
in
these are the
services,
liberties
in
that
the
you are
service
talking
delivery,
about.
Service delivery. I'm talking about services. Asking questions, ask them, or answer them.
Kind of Felix Solaije.
Yes.
I think now that I've got the chance to
the
have
stretching,
you here.
the stretching is we have the capacity to deal with it assigned the nations.
And I'm
Two, we have the discipline. And actually, you Ugandans take it as a challenge. Perform.
We have an ill-performing parliament, for example.
Those are your words. They think they are performing very well.
The president, for the most part, is also
Simon,
disappointed
answer that
amongst
one.
them. I'm asking you.
Yes.
I am asking you.
Yes.
So shall we see the number of members of parliament that are soldiers directly from the army increasing from the already disturbingly 10?
I think
are we going to see? We see a cabinet that, for the most part, lets down the president. Every other time, cabinet ministers accused of this, left, right, and center. Are we going to see more soldiers, serving soldiers, put into cabinet? I see teachers disappointing the president. Are we going to see more soldiers going into teaching?
We are setting the example.
Yeah, but you are setting a trend that is worrying.
Learn from us.
No,
which worrying what?
It is a
Are we
worrying.
Ugandans or we are not?
No, it's
Excuse
worrying.
me. Are we Ugandans or we are not?
You are Ugandans.
Are we a hydra that's going to follow the social order?
Perhaps you will. Perhaps you will. I mean, it's becoming increasingly a military state, for all I know. Because if the delivery of social amenities is going to be led by people in uniform, if the delivery of social service is going to be led by men in uniform, it means clearly that the government has failed to rein in on the civilian civil service. And we're going to see a military state.
If for 20 years, this beautiful civil service of yours is failing in alleviating poverty, and instead you make it a song, it becomes a campaign gimmick every election. We are tired of this. Ugandans need services. Who delivers them, whether in uniform or not, what is they're interested in is the service. They want seedlings? Yes, give them. They want to get out of poverty? Yes, do it.
We will hold
Instead, what are you doing?
We will
hold government to Yambe. We want government to
We will hold you to the same standard of scrutiny as you are gloating about of your efficiency. That means,
and we invite you to do so.
And we'll be here.
We invite you to do so.
You are just beginning.
And certainly we are not asking you to lower the standards.
We will have them even higher.
Yes.
But now that you are here, I think I'll take you away from this subject and ask you other questions relating to the army's role in the way things are going on in this country. We know very well, when we've seen reports coming in of trigger-happy members of the UPDF going around shooting people in bars and all that. What exactly is the extent of this problem from where you sit? Is there a problem with regard to the mental stability of some of your soldiers? Is there a problem with being bored in barracks and having nothing to do? What exactly, from where you sit as a political commissar, is the reason as to why some of your soldiers are running errands and causing mayhem in this country?
No, I think first and foremost, admittedly, we have moral degeneration in the Ugandan public. And you know, we don't come from heaven. We come from the rest of you. And if you take every day, check some of these media houses, every day, there are people doing mob justice. There's somebody caught with somebody's wife. There's somebody doing this and the other, every day. So when you come into our fold, yes, we teach discipline. We teach ideological orientation.
And enforce discipline.
Discipline. But what happens? Just like Lucifer fell out of heaven.
We have a few Lucifers falling off the communion of saints.
Yes, a few Lucifers that fall off. But the bottom line is
calling the UPDF a communion of saints.
I'm not. I know. But certainly, we actually call ourselves to high moral standing, because that's what we expect ourselves to be, and that's what Ugandans expect us to be.
We are seeing a new state. Maybe I should ask this to the police, but you are in the army and this should worry you as well. We're seeing a new trend of terror attacks, or should I call them some kind of attacks where grenades are hurled into people's houses. This is military hardware par excellence. Where are these weapons coming from? Certainly they are not improvised or homemade. What is happening? Are our stores in the military barracks or the armories that we have scattered across the country losing their grip on the ability to withhold some of this military arsenal that's now finding its way into civilians' hands and to the homes of unsuspecting?
No, fortunately for us, we faced out grenades for a long time. We have not used grenades. When I was in northern Uganda 11 years ago, we didn't have grenades.
Where are these things coming from?
We have had a conflict in Ndugu Kasiate since 1978. 78. Some guns have been buried across this country. Some grenades, the same story. It's about individuals, Ugandans, saying, hey, so and so left this here. You remember this, you deserted the bushes? You're right? So all these guns have been here too. We have had the problem of small arms proliferation across the region. So these are some of the consequences. But our stores, for us, they are safe. We don't use grenades for a long time, so we won't find them in our stores.
Let me take you back to where we started from. The UPDF as
but
a moral
bottom line,
banner.
before you leave terrorism, it's critical to note, and before we came on air, you are talking about Nigeria. You realize that terrorism is now capturing almost the entire continent. And
Perhaps even the whole world.
And when I began saying it, you remember, people were saying, oh no, you are using this to intimidate the opposition.
Or perhaps to get classified expenditure
or get more money
into your pockets.
Exactly. Now, across the Maghreb region, the Sahel region, now Nigeria, you know what has been happening in Kenya? What am I saying therefore? Ugandans, be alert. Terrorists out there.
And you, of course, in the army, even more reason to be high on alert to protect the territorial integrity of this country. But there you are distributing seedlings and mosquito nets and all sorts of things. I'm saying, while you are napping away, while you are busy teaching in schools, treating people in hospitals, engaged in parliamentary politics, the terror machinery will attack this country and we'll find ourselves napping. I tell you,
the good news is we are trained to handle these circumstances.
You're trained to
there is no post that will remain vacant. No post will remain vacant.
So you have an oversubscription of soldiers that you have enough to protect this country, and also the same
the
soldiers.
Constitution requires us to do that. Article 210 requires also to support civilian authority. Excuse me.
But let's go back to your operations over the last 7 years.
Yes.
You stole supplies in Somalia. You looted the Congo. You purchased junk copters. The other day, someone brought in here Motema uniforms from little Chinese children and were giving them to male adults of your kind of body size. I mean, all these are stories that have come about the UPDF. We know that there has been an issue of ghost soldiers in the army. And people are asking themselves...
How recent is that?
Well, we are looking at the last decade also. And we are saying, what has changed so much that we should now trust you with more than what you already have?
In 10 years, the only story you can write home about is the issue of Somalia.
And perhaps, the issue of Somalia, both the supplies and the unfortunate incidences of our choppers going down in Kenya, which for the most part people say was negligence on the part of the UPDF.
No, not UPDF. It was the pilot error.
The pilot was not a member of the Uganda Catholic Network. He was a member of the Uganda People's
My brother,
Forces.
after they are still looking for, is it a Malaysian or Indonesian airline?
Malaysian airline.
Yes. What are you talking about? These are accidents. That's why they are called accidents. They happen. The issue of Somalia, logistics and management in Somalia, fortunately, no soldiers missed their logistics. People thought these were excessive supplies and they mishandled them. However, despite that, we are prosecuting them. The sad story is, you are now tribalizing this issue. My prayer to Ugandans, please graduate from tribalism. Look at Kuraije by virtue of what he can do, not where he comes from. My being in uniform, in fact, this issue of militarizing, and that comes back, I felt so sad. This is militarizing the state. Wait a minute. The people who liberated this country from Tanzania were not soldiers. There were people who had been trained as national reservists. Today, those who are building government structures in Tanzania is the national service. It's not an engineering company of some sort. All right? 3, you yourselves have been complaining about shoulder work being done. So, when we look for an alternative, a discipline force to do it, why should it cause a horrible?
No, as I conclude this, you already say that as the UPDF, you are part of the society that Uganda is.
Yes.
That if there is a moral degeneration, if there is a level of incompetence, if there is all sorts of societal malaise, you, the UPDF, suffer from it as well. How can you therefore also claim that you don't suffer from corruption, incompetence, and the like that continue to be there for this country?
That's what my department does. When you come in, we do what you call
indoctrination.
Both immunization. No. No. Conscientization.
No, let's call it indoctrination.
No.
That's the word.
You see, that is being a sycophant of the West. And I'm sure they are regretting why they even did do it.
Or use the word indoctrination for that.
It is
so
conscientization. We immunize you. If you have been infected, we treat you.
An interesting way to end this sentiment of the big story this morning. Let's take a short break. When we return, it's my opinion, Simon Says. I know a friend of mine who had been married for a couple of years, and for some reason he was unable to sire any children with his spouse. quite an unfortunate incident. And then a joke came up and someone suggested to him that maybe he needs more men on the job. That means he would call in his brothers, perhaps his father or his friends to help him, you know, do what is done for him to be able to sire a child with his wife. That seems to be the case with the Ugandan service delivery situation that we have had for a long time. People who are charged with the service delivery of this country not being able to deliver to the expected standard or even not delivering at all. And what are we seeing? We are seeing more men coming onto the job. But it looks like it's not just more men on the job. There seems to be an issue called other men coming onto the job. It could worry, it may not worry. But I think, like it has been argued previously here by the political committee of the UPDF, what we Ugandans require is service delivery. Should we be asking who is delivering this service? Are they in uniform? Are they in civilian clothes? All we want is service delivery. Do we want agricultural services and advisory, whatever it is, seeds and all that, to come down to us? Yes, we do. Do we need drugs in our hospitals? Do we need to find doctors in hospitals? Do we need to find teachers in classrooms? Yes, we need to do that. Now, if the teacher is a guy in uniform, the doctor is a guy in uniform, the guy supplying you is a guy in uniform, well, perhaps we'll feel happy. But the question is, and what should be worrying on the other hand is, the guy in uniform has his own constitutionally laid down duty that we know for the most part, and that's the protection of our sovereignty and, you know, galvanizing us from external attacks. So what happens when they are busy teaching us and giving us agricultural services and there are all these external attacks that come in from nether? Are they able to multitask and do that and a lot more? That's the million-dollar question that we leave with ourselves this morning, and only hope that time will vindicate our worries. Have a good morning, have a productive day, and of course, keep tuned to the program. As always, we continue to give you the most insightful morning programming that there can ever be in this land. Good morning once again.
Everybody in Parliament, as long as they can wake up and vote for the NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am Muyai?
It's absolutely true. I admired President Museveni.
Is the ICC a fascistic code targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only the two individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
A wife who you got through the office will be very insecure about you working in another place.
Always hunt up, don't hunt down.
You mean what? Go after your superior?
How dare you suggest that when a woman is aggressed against, we should look at the person who's been aggressed against?
Let the couple be. Let them sort out their issues. When they need you, then you come in.
Prostitution is being given a new brand.
All I know is that I connect people.
Let's not choose to open our zips and do whatever our urge is, because I don't think that an urge is stronger than your will to say no.
People attach a lot of questions, shame to HIV.
I do not believe that when you wear a short dress, you should be around.
Marrying a wife is like having assured sex. Anytime you come, you must have.
Yes.
You raise a population that has no clue how to be men.
Can you bring out a quality family?
I don't get married for my family.
Men, every Wednesday only on NTV.
mikwano gyaffe bana NTV ate naddala mu bannaamu muli gw'emizannyo muli gw'ebyemizannyo gukomyewo 2014 ate mutya kati ate gukyusiza n'obudde gwa 7 kitundu gwali gwa 9 ne gugoberera ntusanyuka kati gubongereddeko wano malya g'ebyemisana awo gusooke gubatayize gubaleetire buli kintu kyonna kalonda ennawo byemizannyo ogwo muli gw'ebyemizannyo mupya 2014 isima waali alagira Argentina yenjo mukubira eddiba lye omukwano gujja kukomawo ku muli gw'emizannyo naye kasita kinaatuuka eri bano ba Messi okulumba abalenzi baffe ba Thiago Silva awo tewali mukwano omuli gw'ebyemizannyo 2014 President.
On the next episode, brought to you by...
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
Destiny River.
Warm welcome, right?
I'm worried about you, Manuela. Solano told me you split, and why you split.
I figured. And you believe that it was my fault?
On the contrary, I believe Victor set up something to keep Solano away and damage your relationship.
Yeah, do me a favor. Get in your plane and just get lost in the woods. Or I could give you a hand and make you disappear from Sunflower.
Destiny River.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian
After
Mulondo.
8, we're still at the rooftop of the Kampala Serena Hotel. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're online or via your telly in your office or your house, thank you so much. You can also stream this show live, youtube.com/NTV Uganda /live. Now, before the break, we had Colonel Felix Kulaije, who is a political commissar of the army, and he was here talking about the recent statement made by the president, and he's saying he needs to engage the army in government programs following the collapse of NADS, and is contemplating closing it or maybe sending a soldier to every sub-county to monitor the monies, because some of the civil servants have stolen this money. What can we do about this? Your involvement or your comments or questions should be welcome on Facebook and Twitter. And I will go strictly to, first of all, to Facebook about your comments. Ronya Thomas, RT, says, Colonel Felix, we recognize the achievements, but do we have to terminate other Ugandans who are in the service delivery institutes because we can't pay groups to do the same job? Dennis Bekuna says, we are ready to support all that is brought to us. As always, Aluta continue. Louis David Rubongoya says, Simon perhaps lives in Tanzania. How do you fail to recognize the great role of the UPDF? So in your view, ESCOM should be voted the best institution in Uganda. Thank you, UPDF. Ilga Simon Chigongo says, well, Afande, tell Simon that the army is not from heaven. It has all its personnel from all parts of the country. They must not allow the country to go to the dogs. The civil society wants to cover up their corrupt and immoral characters, of which a professional army can't tolerate. And also that brings the question, is it because the army has discipline, so much discipline, that it would obviously discipline whoever goes away from, we've seen the court-martial sentencing a couple of their own for indiscipline. Maybe this may be a solution to corruption in the country. You steal government resources, you're taken to the court-martial, and you pay for your sins. Mwaka Yobu saying, Ugandans, when military council sat in Gulu in 1993 to restore kingdoms, why didn't they complain about the army's involvement in restoring the kingdoms then? Wow, those are very, good comments. I want to quickly go through your Twitter feedback also. Remember, our Twitter handle is @morning@NTV. Felix Kulaije says, it is sad that Ugandans are tribalizing the issue of misuse of logistics in Somalia. No particular tribe is to blame. And of course, it says we need to graduate from tribalism in this era. For 20 years, civil service has failed to deliver services. So right now, whoever delivers this, whether in uniform or not, that's the most important thing, and that's what we should be looking at. We have had a conflict since 1978, so guns and grenades are buried across this country. They are not from the UPDF stores. Of course, following the 2 bombs that have been dropped in people's home over the past couple of days. Yesterday, one in Namugongo. And where is this artillery found? How come people are getting them just like that, free of charge? It shouldn't matter who delivers services to the people, whether it is the men in uniform or the civil service. This is a huge debate across the whole country. Should government involve the army in service delivery? Let us know on Facebook, Twitter, and the SMS platform. Let me take a breather. When I come back, since the 1940s, cervical cancer has been amongst women across the whole world. What causes it, and how do you make sure you avoid cervical cancer as early as possible? Coming up on Everyday Life. Stay with us.
Oluvannyuma lwa lutalo abaana bangi batwalibwa ab'ekika era bulala basigadde abamu bajja ne babakima era twagende mu Lukoola eyo ina Kasongola mu Buluuri twagende mu Butale Babalaaro okubuuza omwana oyo mumanyi
nti mukwate obutonde obwekonkome mukwate obutonde bwa Ebola mubuteeke mu nsigo omuzungu ayogedde palamenti muyise bosi basajja omulembe guno gutuusemu n'abantu n'entondo kati waliwo n'emyaka egy'entondo
waliwo yakiŋŋamba
bamugamba muŋŋambe bulungi kati munkwate empola
dokita buli akwata bayibuli eno ajja kusomera bintu nga ye bw'alowooza. For example, waliwo controversy yaliwo
tobeera mu ssuuti ate n'oteekamu gganduula
olina kubeerako kimu
kubanga okusomesezza tumaze emyaka 2 tusomesa bannayuganda eddembe lyammwe mulimanyi oluusi n'obusobozi obulina
nakulabira abaganda baagala kabaka
Are you and I ever gonna have a chance to be sisters?
You want the baby to have my name?
Would that be okay?
So I'm happy you came. Yes, especially since I thought you were shunning all things Newman. I have my own reasons for showing up.
What did you say about him?
I'm sorry, attempted rape.
Okay, look, whatever you think you know about him, you don't know his heart.
If there is a way to make me feel more miserable, you will instinctively find it.
You gave up the one woman you loved, and now you're having a hard time figuring out how to move on?
I can't imagine who would want to hurt a good man like you.
Okay, you know what? I don't need you telling me how to feel about Lily.
Are you pregnant? No. Then why are you trying to alienate Tyler?
Has something happened between the two of you? Are you afraid that I'm gonna do something to ruin your marriage, or that you will?
Why don't we have a party? I'll bring Nikki and bring your siblings. How's that?
Now, what are you gonna do? You gonna blackmail them this time, or are you gonna bribe them?
Looks like Mommy's not the only one who knows how to make up a story.
Coming soon on NTV.
A tale of two families.
I would very much want to thank everybody who is behind the Braganza estate.
Oh, that's us. Bound by friendship. Torn apart by love.
Hi, Gardo.
Consumed by greed.
A man's courage is not measured by how many guns he owns or about how many people are frightened of him.
Stay down! Stay down!
An epic retelling of the most successful Philippine drama series of all time.
Coming soon on NTV. You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Molondo.
Well, every Wednesday we call it the Healthy Wednesday, and this morning we're going to look at something that has been there as early as the 1940s, women suffering from cervical cancer. And if you are at home and you are thinking, when do I get the test? Well, this morning we'll give you more information about that. And helping us this morning is Dr. Twaha Mutiaba. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning, Brian.
Thank you so much for joining us. I see so many titles here. MBCHMM. You are, in the layman's language, a gynecologist.
Yes, I'm a gynecologist.
All right. This morning I've invited you to talk about cervical cancer and what causes it. First of all, just help us define it.
Well, the cervix is that part of the womb or uterus which is lowermost. It faces the vagina. Actually, many women, when they are washing or when they are bathing, and if they push their finger deep inside, they will touch something firm or hard. They would be touching their cervix. And cancer is abnormal multiplication or growth of our body cells, and they eat away the normal cells and they spread to other parts of the body.
Right.
So cancer of the cervix is cancer that originates in that part of the womb, the cervix, the lowermost part.
What causes those cells to grow?
In most cancers it is not known, but in cancer of the cervix we know what causes it. It's persistent infection with a virus called human papillomavirus. This virus has many types, over 100 of them, but it's about 20 subtypes which cause cancer when they persist. This virus, the human papillomavirus, is common. It's a very common, actually it's the commonest sexually transmitted infection, human papillomavirus. It's like we get flu. It comes and goes, it comes and goes. The same with this virus, human papillomavirus. It is sexually transmitted. Therefore, almost more than 90% of women who have had sex have been exposed to this virus.
So are you trying to say that cervical cancer is an STD?
Yes, you would say that. Because the cause is a sexually transmitted virus. Fortunately, the majority of those infections, our body, or the woman's body, fights them off without any interference by us. It's like you can get flu, you don't take any medicine, and you get well afterwards.
Right.
So it's the same with this virus. The majority of these infections, we call them self-limiting. They just go away within a period of about 3 years of the initial infection. Your body system gets rid of these viruses. It's only in about 1% of women where the virus persists and remains on the virus, and it is these women who eventually get cancer of the cervix.
Wow.
So you can see the people who are likely to get cancer of the cervix are those who are very highly sexual active.
So prostitutes would definitely be...
They are a high-risk group because they get repeated infections with HPV. Then we have those people who start sexual activity very early, before their 18th year. And then those who have had multiple sexual partners, because of course it increases your risk of getting the virus. And then we also have women who have had so many babies. They also a high-risk group. They also a high-risk group.
You talked about 18 years. Is there an age where you're more likely to be susceptible to cervical cancer?
Well, in general, most cancers are cancers of older people. They come, we find them in older people. It's cancer of the cervix, and probably those which we call childhood cancers, the leukemias, lymphomas. Cancer of the cervix is cancer of young women. The peak age is about 45. It peaks the incidence in about 45-year-olds. That's where you get the peak incidence. But we've seen it in women as early as 25 years, those who started sexual activity very early, and those who have lowered immunity, like in AIDS. Because once you have lowered immunity, you can't fight off the virus.
Yes.
Once you get it. So in these people, it actually gets them at a younger age, and it progresses faster through the stages. Those who have lowered immunity, like the AIDS patients.
When free self-male circumcision was introduced here, and it became really a national program, one of the reasons that was given was that if you circumcise, it reduces the chances of you transmitting. Somehow uncircumcised men are carriers of cervical cancer. How is that true?
Well, they don't carry the cancer itself, because the cancer will be on the female body, but they carry the virus. The virus is harbored in the smegma, you know, the smegma that is underneath. So non-circumcised people are more likely to actually get more sexually transmitted infections. Not only HPV, but all the others. HIV, gonorrhea, name it.
Why? Because what did you call it?
The foreskin. The foreskin, underneath the foreskin, it is a substance which accumulates. We call it smegma. And that one is more or less like food for sexually transmitted infections. So if you don't have good personal hygiene to clean that smegma off every day, you're more likely to harbor and transmit sexually transmitted infections, including HPV and HIV. Actually, long before they confirmed that HPV was the cause of cancer of the cervix, it had been observed that cancer of the penis was more common in the non-circumcised people. And it has now been confirmed that the same virus, HPV, is responsible for the cancer of the penis.
So wait, okay, now you're and
so they are closely related.
So there's also cancer of the penis. What do you call that medically?
No, it is that.
It's just that.
Cancer of the penis, yeah.
Wow. It eats away the penis?
Yeah. It eats away the penis, and they have to cut it off to save you.
Are you joking?
No, I'm serious.
Oh my God. Is that what they call nkumunye in Luganda, I think?
Well, nkumunye could be, you know, Luganda terms are a bit confusing. They might use a term to cover so many things. The other, because cancer of the penis starts like an ulcer on the penis, a wound. But the other infections of the penis, which present the same way. So a person who sees them in Uganda will not be able to tell the difference. Things like even syphilis itself can cause an ulcer on the penis. The other things like chancroid, LGV,
symptoms seem to be the same.
They are the same. They cause an ulcer on the penis. And even cancer of the penis might cause an ulcer on the penis. So collectively, I think the Baganda call them nkumunye.
If you're just joining us, I'm with Dr. Twaham Tiaba, and we are looking at cervical cancer this morning. Please forward your questions and comments on Twitter or Facebook, and you can send the SMS to 6565, and so that he can answer these questions as fast as he can. Are those the primary causes of cervical cancer?
Yeah, the primary cause, the major cause is persistent infection with human papillomavirus. And then there are they are the things we call, you will call them promoters. There is a cause, HPV, but they are promoters, like the things I talked about, we call them cofactors. Like you might have other infections around your genital area, around the cervix. Women get these infections, like Candida, Trichomonas vaginalis, and other infections. You might have lowered immunity, like those people with AIDS.
I hear women complaining about UTIs. Are they also promoters?
No. Urinary tract infections are in another system, in the urinary system. It is close to, but really it is separate from the genital system.
All right.
It only connects with the genital system at the outlet, what we call the urethra.
Right.
When the urine is coming out, but actually they are separate systems. So these ones I'm talking about are infections within the genital area, around the cervix and the vagina. Then I mentioned those activities or behaviors which predispose you to many sexual encounters with multiple sexual partners. They increase your risk of getting this HPV, the virus.
How then do I, prevent it? How do I even catch it before it becomes
cancer?
Yeah.
I want to tell the viewers that fortunately cancer of the cervix is one cancer that is truly preventable. And if we catch it early, it is one cancer that can be cured, unlike most cancers.
Yeah.
So women should be saying, okay, we are fortunate.
Thank God.
Thank God this is a cancer that can be prevented and that can be cured if caught early. So how do we prevent it? Let me start with the prevention. Cancer of the cervix, from infection to the time you get cancer of the cervix, there is a pre-cancer stage, there is a stage in between, which we call pre-cancer. It is not cancer, but it is not a normal cervix also. It is somewhere there in the middle, and there is a long period, say close to 10 years, from progression from this pre-cancer to the cancer itself. So this is the target. The Europeans actually don't have as much cancer of the cervix as we have in the poor countries, because they figured this out quite early, and the cervix is visible to us. It is one part of the body that can be seen.
Right.
All we need is to put the woman in a position, insert some small instrument, and we can be able to look.
Can see
we can see the cervix very clearly.
Right.
So what the Europeans did, you mentioned it here earlier, they could take off scrapings from the cervix like this, and then they go and examine that under the microscope. You can tell, you remember I talked about cells growing.
Yes.
You can tell which are normal cells and which are abnormal cells under the microscope. So you can detect this abnormality, the precancer. And then when you catch it at this stage, the treatment is so simple. Either it's a matter of freezing the cells or heating them using some gadgets, and you sort of kill them off. New ones grow which are healthy.
Oh, okay.
And you've prevented the cancer. Therefore, if you treat the precancer, you prevent the cancer.
Right.
So the Europeans and the Western world, let me say, they used this, they established what they call national screening programs. They targeted every woman who is likely to be at risk, and they developed behavior. The women, they developed a behavior of going often. Say in the past it used to be every year. They would go for that pap smear every year.
That's the pap smear.
The pap smear. The scraping I talked about of the mouth of the womb. They will take the pap smear every year. So if you miss it this year, next year you will not miss it. So they managed to bring the occurrence of cervical cancer to very low levels.
Right.
Of recent, they have developed new methods which are actually easier of screening. Because you remember the pap smear, you would take the scrapings off the cervix, send them to a lab where they are examined, and then get the results probably about 2 weeks later. But now we have methods where you look on the cervix, apply chemical. Actually, it is like vinegar. Apply chemical, and those who know will detect, will be able to see some changes as a result of this chemical that make you suspicious that all is not well.
Right.
And then, if all is not well, you can go and do a more advanced sort of examination. We call it colposcopy. And it's more like a microscope looking at the cervix, and you can tell whether there is a problem or not. And if there is a problem, you treat it straight out. That's one way of prevention. Now, of recent, possibly in about the past 10 years, it's coming to 10 years, they've developed vaccines against the human papillomavirus. They're on the market. You know, like we vaccinated against polio and got rid of it.
You just go and buy it and...
Yes, there is there are preventive vaccines on the market now against this virus, human papillomavirus, which a woman is injected with. They are given 3 doses, and so far they are still being studied. It's now coming to about 10 years, and they are working very well. The problem probably is they are preventive vaccines. So those who have been already exposed to the virus will not benefit from
the vaccines. They will have to do the real pap test.
Yeah, they will have to go for the screening. Even those who have the vaccine will need the screening.
Right.
But so these vaccines target women who have not had sex. So they are eligible for girls as from 9 years up to about probably 25. The Uganda policy is probably a bit lower, but worldwide the target group is 9 to 25.
Because they assume not to engage
those
in
who have
sex.
not had sex, yeah.
Well, doctor, we are fast spent on time. We'll probably do a visit to your clinic, and we actually see some of these live. But if you want to get in touch with Dr. Mutiaba, tmutiaba@yahoo.com, please send him an email, and you can go and probably get a pap smear. We have seen campaigns urging women to go and check once in a while. I promise you, doctor, we shall come and do it right where you work.
Do it, okay.
Yes, and for the rest of you, continue those questions on Facebook and on Twitter. We'll ask the doctor to kindly respond to you on those forums. Don't forget our SMS platform, 6565. Starting by is Isma. Good morning, Isma, and what do we have on the sports menu this morning? 1 day to the World Cup. What are your expectations?
Yes, the World Cup does get underway tomorrow at 11 p.m. when Brazil hosts Croatia. We'll be talking about all those teams that we think can win or will not win the World Cup. I'll give you the reasons why they can win and why they won't. The World Cup will have some games that go on at 3 a.m. and I've been preparing for that by watching a lot of basketball. Miami Heat against the San Antonio Spurs this morning. The Spurs beating up on the Heat. That and more in sport.
A wife who you got through the office will be very insecure about you working in another place.
Always hunt up, don't hunt down.
You mean what? Go after your superior?
How dare you suggest that when a woman is aggressed against, we should look at the person who's been aggressed against?
Let the couple be. Let them sort out their issues. When they need you, then you come in.
Prostitution is being given a new brand.
All I know is that I connect people.
Let's not choose to open our zips and do whatever our urge is, because I don't think that an urge is stronger than your will to say no.
People attach a lot of questions, shame to HIV.
I do not believe that when you wear a short dress, you should be around.
Marrying a wife is like having assured sex.
Anytime you come, you must have.
Yes.
To raise a population that has no clue how to be men.
Can you bring out a quality family?
I don't get married for my family.
Men, every Wednesday only on NTV. On the next episode, brought to you by...
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
La Patrona.
We planned it with the utmost secrecy. How and when did your mother find out?
That microphone was hidden in the room yesterday where we made love, Lucho.
I swear it on my daughter, the most sacred thing in my life, that your deaths will not go unpunished.
Antonia, I can't believe you just finished killing those 2 kids. And regarding those kids, the whole town's upset about it.
Max was really frustrated, so was Valentina. There was a stack of papers like this.
What papers are you referring to?
La Patrona.
You can download movies at the lowest prices another fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
Una canzone a cambiare le regole del gioco, ma voglio viverla così questa avventura, senza frontiere, con il cuore in gola. Il mondo in una giostra di colori, e il vento accarezza le bandiere, arriva un brivido e ti trascina via e sciogli in un abbraccio la follia. Notti magiche.
if you increase the budget, it's basically helping the person who is up on the ladder. Youth fund, that one is gone case. Because if you look at the process of getting the youth fund, it's long and you have to know someone in the queue.
There's a lot to be done with that money. There are so many schools that are really in poor state that need to be worked on. The hospitals. So if they keep on adding more money for some of these MPs who don't even do anything.
To me, as a youth, I think the budget should address most especially on jobs for us the youth.
9,000 jobs for 400,000 graduates every year. But maybe the budget will answer that on June 12, 2014.
Our budget, our responsibility.
Thank you so much for staying with us. One day to the World Cup, the fever is there, as if. I don't know about you guys, but I don't feel like I'm ready to watch the World Cup. I feel like it should be postponed. But Italy 1990 is putting in the fever as if.
Probably the best World Cup song ever.
Shakira did a good job.
She did a good job.
It was an African. One of those Italians who did. Okay, he's an Ethiopian. Okay,
yeah,
okay. Somali.
I think the one of Italian 90 takes it for me. Even if I didn't watch that World Cup, listen to it for several years when we had one television station in Uganda, UPDF at the time, and actually it made Luciano Pavarotti a star. And actually, when he passed on a few years ago, one of the lead singers in that one, the Italian, what's that thing they do? The violin.
The cello.
Yeah, the violin.
Bakaita Cacello.
Cacello. Yeah, the guy. He was a very good performer with that. I actually had to watch a few YouTube
Pavarotti
videos.
Wasn't in that video, was he?
He was one of the people behind the concept.
Okay.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
But this year we don't have a World Cup song.
It's there.
It is.
But people don't know it.
It must be very boring.
And the Brazilians are saying it's not Brazilian enough. It has a lot of Spanish and English and not Portuguese.
Yeah, because of J-Lo, who is Puerto Rican, and then Pitbull are the ones who did the song, and the Brazilians don't like it. But they're protesting because of the song. They're protesting because of hospitals, roads. They promised so many train stations that
they were against the World Cup going to their home.
Yeah, many of them have been. But I was interesting that there's been this story about them not wanting the World Cup. But I was watching another story, another side of what opinions could be. In one of the favelas, just not too far away from where the first game is going to be in Sao Paulo, people were painting their houses in the green and yellow of Brazil. Right. Many of them, and the entire favela was excited. You know the slums, like they're called in Brazilian, and it was totally different from the mood we've seen on the streets of people throwing petrol bombs.
Deep down, Brazil is still the football nation that it has always been.
It will always be.
Isma has put up a list of World Cup champion possibilities, and let's quiz him about that. Isma, first of all, what advantage do Brazil have? Of course, given what they've gone through, the population has been rioting and demonstrating, poor services at home delivered by the government, but the World Cup is going to take a lot of money away from, the people. What advantage do they have, the fact that they're at home?
I think that's the biggest advantage. I was actually reading up on a stat that I need to authenticate at some point. They've not lost a fixture at home in 51 years. 51 years. And actually, they did lose the last World Cup, so people will be edgy when they played at home back in 1950. They lost to Uruguay in the final by 2 goals to 1, a game which Brazil took the lead. So there's been that skepticism. But for me, one of the strengths they'll have, they are probably, for me, the best coaching team at the World Cup. Scolari and Carlos Alberto Pereira. They've been in this business longer than everyone. And they don't have the stars of yesteryears because in the past, Brazil, you'd probably cite Rivaldo, Ronaldo, Roberto Carlos, Cafu. They had so many names around them. They don't have that luxury because beyond Neymar, they don't have that big stars. But then, one of the things they have that will be working for them, they have been very consistent in their selection. They're going to be fielding the same team probably that played in the Confederations Cup which they won last year. So that should work in their favor. And they play very good counter-attacking football. They're a very physical side. So many teams wouldn't cope up with Brazil for me.
Really?
Yeah, so many wouldn't.
Wow.
Though not having stars could hinder them because Brazil has come with that kind of attention. Bebeto Romario, 1994. 1998, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and
Roberto Carlos.
Dunga.
The whole crew was
they were all stars.
The stars started.
Now they are not.
From the goalkeeper.
Yeah, from Claudio Taffarel going on to Dida at some point. They've always been a star-studded side. This time they are not. But that could probably
That's
be the
what
thing.
freaks me out now, that they could easily lose. But
Okay, moving on to Argentina. Is this Messi's turn now to help the country, you know, take them to a place they haven't been since 1986 and cement his legacy?
Is very personal to Isma.
I'll try not to be personal. He will never get a better chance of winning the World Cup than this one. And he's right. He's not been in his prime this season, but he's right. If you want to draw correlations with Maradona, and that's where Messi has lived ever since he came into football, is that this is the same age in 1996 that Maradona, 1986, that Maradona was when he won the World Cup. That's one thing. Probably he'll never get a better chance because probably in 4 years' time he'll be 30 and won't be a contributor that much in the team, in the Argentine team. So I have a feeling that one of the things that probably has got to work for him is the coach picking the team right. Going forward, Argentina will be very hard to stop. Gonzalo Higuain, Messi, Angel Di Maria, Sergio Aguero, and Ezequiel Lavezzi, they'll have the best attack in the World Cup. But defensively, they'll have one of the weakest defenses among the favorites. Now, how they defend as a unit, especially starting with Javier Mascherano in midfield, to help out on Ezequiel Garay, Zabaleta, and the other guys who play in defense, probably Mati Dimichelis, who I don't rate at all, and then a goalkeeper who is non-existent, Sergio Romero. They've got to defend as a team without the ball, and that will be the only way they can go and win the World Cup. But Messi will not get a better chance.
You have quite a number of stars on the Argentine squad.
Yeah, I think they have bigger stars than most of the teams there. Only Spain would compare.
First of all, let's go first to Spain. They are the defending champions. Can they do it again? Do you think they have one of the best squads in the world?
My biggest fear for Spain is that, and I'm a student of economics, they love diminishing marginal returns. Now Spain went to that peak. Since winning the Euro, they won the World Cup, they won another Euro 2 years ago. Now, can they improve beyond that? Do you see anything beyond winning 2 Euros and the World Cup in 4 years?
The individual players are doing well in their clubs.
Exactly.
When they bring this unit together, we can still have another.
And actually, you could throw in the fact that they won the Champions League because Madrid won it with 2 teams in the final. They won the Europa League with Sevilla, and they probably have some of the best players. But the thing is that sometimes the things that happen to teams that have hit their peak, you cannot explain logically. For me, the only reason why Spain may not win the World Cup is because they are past their peak. They did everything to win the Euro in 2008, having not won a trophy since 1960. So directly in 1964, when they beat the Soviet Union in the Euro final in 1964. After that, they didn't win anything until 2008. Then they went to their peak. Can they improve beyond that? For Vicente Del Bosque, I think to do that, they've got to include some of the players who have not been contributors in recent years. Probably, I'd love to see Xavi play a lot less and bring in cocky players with that hunger. Because some of these guys like Sergio Ramos, like Iker Casillas, like David Villa, like Fernando Torres have done it. Yeah. They've won everything. They've won that. What's there to achieve? People win only one World Cup in their lifetimes, and they are the greatest players to ever play the game, like Maradona. Right. Now, how do you motivate Spain to come back and play with that kind of hunger they had in South Africa where they lost their first game? That's going to be the hardest challenge for them.
Okay, we're running out of time. What about Netherlands? They reached the finals last time. Do you think they have a better chance this time round?
Probably for me, they are weaker than they were 4 years ago. They are a lot more defensive than they were because they no longer produce that caliber of players like Dennis Bergkamp. They no longer produce that attacking talent. So I have a feeling that Netherlands will struggle. Luckily, they are going to come through a tough group, and if they get through that, could probably help them going forward because they're in the same group with Spain and Chile, and Australia would be the whipping boys of the group. Now, the thing is that I don't see the same Netherlands of 4 years ago. Beyond Robin van Persie, what else is going to happen? Robin van Persie has been struggling with an injury. Robin was fighting one of his teammates in training because he kicked him so hard on his ankle, and he thought, you want to make me miss the World Cup? I'll kick you after the pitch. So something like that. I don't see anything beyond those two. Wesley Sneijder is no longer playing well at his club. Luckily, they don't have Kevin Strootman, who got injured, the Roma midfielder. He's not going to the World Cup. Defensively, their best player, probably Ron Vlaar, who plays at Aston Villa, has played only 34 times for the country. So even the back unit, the defense is most especially, all of them are young players. They don't have one of their better players. Gregory van der Wiel is out injured, not playing at the World Cup. So there are so many holes in that Netherlands team. I find it easier to find the holes in the Netherlands team than find the positive things about them this time.
I'm the kind of person who has failed to appreciate the strength of the Dutch team. They have good players, right from the days of Bergkamp and Overmars, but they always never get it right. They are like they are so unlucky, like Ivory Coast.
Their
teams, they have what it takes.
And now, should I draw for you a correlation? Netherlands, Ivory Coast were orange.
Oh,
and actually, even in the times when Netherlands were the best team in the world, back in 1974, they had Johan Cruyff. They lost in the World Cup final to Germany. And over time, they've done that again and again. I remember watching them in, I think it was the semi-finals in 1998. They outplayed Brazil. They lost the game in a penalty shootout. That's how Netherlands have been over the years.
And I am very sure it's going to be the same this year. It's going to be the same for a number of years. But I love these guys because they are very harsh, straight to the point. The Germans, they've changed their style of play in the past couple of years. What do they bring to the World Cup, this particular World Cup?
I think in the past they were always the team that have a lot of grit. They would they would set up their team not to lose rather than win. Now Germany have changed considerably in recent years because now they try to pass the ball a lot more. They try to play an attacking brand of football. Ever since I think they hired Jürgen Klinsmann going to the 2006 World Cup, they're totally different team since they lost in the group stages of Euro 2004. But while they come to the World Cup with only one way to make it a successful World Cup, they've got to win. They last won the World Cup in Italy 90. They have 3 titles since. They last won any major international trophy in Euro 96, coming from a goal down against Czechoslovakia with Oliver Bierhoff. Ever since then, Germany have been knocking on the door. They were knocked out in 1998 by Croatia, lost in the final in 2002. When they hosted, they lost in the semi-final to Italy in 2006. 2010, the same, they lost in the semi-final. So, to Spain, they lost the Euro final in 2008 to Spain. So, for them, it's just about winning. Now, the problem is that they go in the World Cup. They have so many quality midfielders, from Andre Schuler, Mario Götze, Lukas Podolski. Now, they have only one striker, Miroslav Klose, who is 37.
Yeah,
if the boys are not coming,
his birthday,
I can't believe he's that old.
He's not been around for long enough.
So young.
Yeah, because when he broke in 2002 and scored those 5 headers, 4 headers actually against Saudi Arabia, everyone, the world was it's something like that. But I think their weakness is going to be start and stop with Klose. They'll possess the ball, they will outplay many teams. If they don't get the goals going, they no longer score from free kicks like the Germany of the 90s. They no longer score probably from penalties or headers when they get the corners. It will be a big problem if Klose is not scoring in Brazil.
It's one day to the World Cup, probably a couple of hours to the World Cup. Finally, Africa has delivered all its teams. Somehow we always have all those issues. We'll be looking at more teams tomorrow morning before the World Cup starts, 12th June. Brazil is definitely ready. What's the morning show without your African proverb? Take a look. Daniel Kalema this morning contributing the African proverb from Ghana, one head does not contain all the wisdom.
I'm looking at your head.
As soon as you
the size of the head.
I'm looking at your head and I'm thinking.
But we're talking about football. I think of Messi with that. I think the weight of Argentina is on him. Right. It's just one person, one head.
Yeah.
The Netherlands, Van Persie, one head. Other countries have more than one.
The best thing about like football, before we even get out to the proverb, is that players win games, coaches lose them. It's only in the case of Messi where the player will be blamed for not winning the World Cup, because in all cases, all teams that will fail to win, the first point of blame will be the coach. Now, that's
different.
That's the only point when the coach probably becomes the only man with the wisdom. Like the former coach of Brazil once said, when he was being pushed to select Romario for the 1998 World Cup, Mario Zagallo said, Brazil has a population of about 120 million. There is only one coach, and I'll be the one to choose the team.
Yeah.
So he had all the wisdom.
He defined. Thank God he won the World Cup that year. Because
no, he didn't. He lost in the final. But 4 years later, the same thing came up with Scolari, and Scolari said
Scolari refused.
It was Scolari. Okay, also said the same thing like Zagallo had.
But he won it.
He won the World Cup.
Oh, thank God. Wella says we get advice from people who have never managed a single game. But I guess
more heads.
All right, I want to...
there is a manager who was hired, like us who talk about the sport. He was hired at Cambridge United. 7 games, lost 5, drew 2, was fired, back to his newsroom.
We should talk slowly.
Kakaire David says, see President Museveni's head, it contains all the wisdom. We want to say have a fantastic day. Tomorrow the budget will be read. We'll have a comprehensive look at some of the highlights in that. The expectations of the people. Will be going live also to the budget reading. So make sure you stay with NTV, turning on your world. And from the rest of the crew here at the rooftop of the Serena Hotel and back at the NTV studios, hasta la vista, baby. Bye-bye.
You're watching Morning at NTV with Simon Kasiate, Mabel Kebirunji, and Brian Mulondo.
NTV, turning on your world.
You can bring everybody in parliament as long as they can wake up and vote for the NRM.
As long as the voters exercise their rights to elect their leaders, there was no need for term limits in Uganda.
I know him. I know how he operates. I know how he thinks.
There are ways you can go around these obstacles.
Why should I conduct myself as if I am MUI?
It's absolutely true. I admired President Museveni.
Is the ICC a fascistic code targeting African leaders?
You cannot tell me that the whole trouble Kenya had revolved about only 2 individuals.
The money is not in the budget of this financial year.
You can't beat God. You see, God is polygamous also. Look at Jeremiah chapter 31.
The security of this country will largely depend on the contribution that the people make.
On the next episode, brought to you by...
At Orange, we know you want to do more on the internet. That's why we bring you happy hour day and night.
On the next episode of Destiny River.
I never want to see your face again, Solano. I hate you.
So why did you come looking for me? You invaded my house and caused the scene.
The only ridiculous thing I did was get involved with an adventurous scumbag like
girl.
you.
And we go forward without looking back.
I can't do it anymore. Thanks for trying, but I won't be a part of it anymore.
A little closer to him. But I can't even dream about him finding out who I really am, who I really was.
Destiny River.
You can download movies at the lowest prices and never fast from Orange. Dial *133# to buy a data bundle. Happy hour changes with Orange. Today changes with Orange.
Someone's knocking at the door. Someone's knocking at the door. Can you hear him knocking? Can you hear him knocking?